Hi, this is Samira. Welcome to session on static routing. In this session, I would cover the concepts around static routing. So what is static routing and why do we require to use static routing? We would also take a look at the concepts of default routing. So default routing is also a part of static routing only. So what is the difference between default routing and static routing, and where do we use default routing? And then we will also take a look at how you can configure static as well as default routing. For configurations, we are going to take a look at one example and configure the same on Packet Tracer. So let us begin with the session. Let us move on with static routing. We will first discuss what is static routing. Static routing is used to create routing tables manually. Okay, so in case of static routing, a network administrator is manually going to enter the routes in the routing table of a router. Static routing is used in case where you want to have administrative control or security over the routes in your network. You can use static routing only for small networks. It will not be feasible to use static routing for large networks, because if there is any change in the network, that change needs to be updated in the routing table. Okay, so administrator has to be updated of any changes that take place in the network, and the administrator needs to perform the update in the routing table as and when there are changes in the network. If one of the route fails, then in that case it is the responsibility of the network administrator to update the routing table accordingly. If that is not done, there can be several issues in the network, like there can be loss of packets destined to a particular network because the routing table is not updated. In order to configure static route, the command used is IP route followed by the destination network, followed by the mask of the destination network, followed by the next hop address. You can use the interface address, that is the exit interface address, in place of next hop address. That is fine. You need to configure this command in the global configuration mode of your router. Next, we will move on to default routing. Default routing is similar to static routing, wherein the network administrator manually configures this route on the router. Default routing is going to be used only on stub networks. Okay, you cannot use default routing if you have got multiple exit interfaces. Stub networks are networks which have got a single exit interface, that is, any device which is present on this network, if it has to send packet to any other device present on any other network, then that packet has to go out of this interface only, because there is no other interface being connected anywhere. Okay, so this is the only interface which is connected to the outside world. Hence, any packet originating from inside this network will have to go over this interface only. Such type of networks are called as stub networks. And you can configure default routing only on stub network, because in case of default routing, you basically tell the router that in order to go to any network, go via this route. Okay, so that is what is there in this configuration command. In order to configure a default route, you need to do the configuration in the global configuration mode, and the command is IP route followed by 0000 0000. That is the destination network as well as the mask. Both are going to be all zeros. This is what defines any network. Okay, so in order to go to any network, you need to use this next hop address or this particular exit interface. Okay, so if this is your example, then on this router you can configure the default route as IP route 0.0.0.0, 0.0.0.0, followed by the IP address of this interface. Okay, so this is the next hop interface address. Or if you do not want to provide the next hop address, then in that case you can provide the exit interface as serial 000. Okay, that is, you will give IP route all zeros for network as well as mask, followed by serial 0/0/0. Okay, so that is how you can configure default route. Next, we will move on to static and default route configuration. For that, we are going to take a look at this topology. Okay, so we will be configuring this topology in the packet tracer. In this topology, I have got 3 routers, R1, R3 and R4. These 3 routers are having a single exit interface. Okay, that is for this network 192.168.1.0, which is on this side of R1 router. If I need to send any packet out from this network, I have got only this exit interface. Okay, that's why this network is a stub network. Similarly, 192.168.2.0, which is present on the side of router 3, if I need to send any packets out of this interface, out of this network, then I have got this single exit interface present. That's why this is a stub network present on R3. Similarly, I have got this stub network present on R4, as this is the single exit interface. And hence, I can configure default route on R1, R3 as well as R4. R2 has got 3 connections, and hence I cannot use default route on this R2. On R2, I can configure only static routing. For configurations in packet tracer, I am going to configure static routing on R3, R2 as well as R4. On these 3 routers, I will configure static routing, and I will configure default routing only on R1. Okay, so if you have got a stub network, you can configure default routing, or you can also configure static routing. Okay, both are possible. So in this case, in this example, we will configure static routing on R3, R2 and R4 and default on R1. Let us create topology shown here on the packet tracer. I'll first create the topologies by using the devices which are present here, and then I'll configure routing. I'll first configure the IP addresses on all of my devices, and then I'll configure routing on my routers. I have got 4 routers present, and I have got 3 switches present in this topology, and then I'll also be adding some end devices in order to check connectivity for the networks. So I'm going to add end devices in all of my networks. I have got my routers which are connected to each other using WAN links. So I will be using the serial interface cards in my router, for which I'll first switch off my router and I'll insert my serial card and then switch my router on. Once I have got the serial interface cards present on my routers, I would then be able to use WAN links to connect the routers to each other. So these are point-to-point WAN links between the routers, and then I'll connect my other devices as well. So once I have got all of my devices connected, next I will start configuring IP addresses on my devices. I have got my devices present in my end devices which are present in 3 different networks. Okay, that is my host are present on 3 different networks, and then I also have got 3 other networks between the routers. Okay, so the WAN links are going to be having separate networks as well. So I'll just mention the networks which are present. This is 192.168.1.0/24 network. This is 192.168.2.0/24 network, and this network is my 192.168.3.0/24 network. So I've got all of these networks present here, and then for my WAN links I am using the network 10.0.1.0/30. The WAN link 2 has got the network 10.0.1, use 1.4/30, and for this WAN link I'll use the network 10.0.1.8/30. So I'll start configuring the IP addresses on all of my devices. First I'll configure IP addresses on my end devices, okay, which are these PCs. Okay, so for PC I also need to configure a default gateway. The default gateway is going to be the interface of my router. Okay, so this interface of my router is my default gateway. I'll provide the IP address to this device 192.168.1.10, and I will provide the default gateway as 192.168.1.1. The default gateway for both these devices is going to be the same because both of them are connected to the same router's interface. For this PC I'll give the IP address 192.168.1.11 and the default gateway 192.168.1.1. Next I'll configure IP address on my router's interface. So for that I need to go to the global configuration first, and then I need to go into the interface configuration for fast Ethernet 00. Here I'll provide the IP address of the default gateway, which is 192.168.1.1 with subnet mask of 24, and I'll provide a no shut to bring the interface up. Next I need to configure the serial 010 interface, okay, so which is this interface. So this interface is a DCE, so you can see this clock symbol here, right? So this is a DCE. So in addition to the IP address, I also need to configure the clock rate for this interface. I'll first configure the IP address for this interface, which is 10.0.1.1 with subnet mask of /30. I'll provide the no shut command to bring the interface up, and I also need to provide the clock rate. I'll provide a clock rate of 64,000. Next is this router. This router has got 3 serial interfaces connected. I'll go to the interface configuration mode of the serial interface 010 first, which is this interface. So this is a DTE. I just need to provide the IP address and the no shut command. For this device I'll provide the IP address 10.0.1.4/30, and I'll provide the no shut command. So you can see this link has now come up. Next I'll move on to the interface 011, which is this interface. So this is my serial 011 interface, and this is a DCE. You can see the clock symbol here. So this is the DCE interface. So I need to provide the clock rate for this interface along with the IP address configurations. First I'll provide the IP address configuration, which is 10.0.1.5 with the subnet mask of /30. I need to provide the clock rate to this interface. I'll provide a clock rate of 64,000 to this interface. I'll do a do show IP interface brief to check the interfaces. So I have assigned IP address to serial interface 011. Okay, and I think there was an error being thrown when I tried to give the IP address to 010. So I'll just configure the IP address on my serial interface 010 again. I need to provide the IP address 10.0.12 here with subnet mask /30, and I'll do show IP interface brief. Yes, so these two interfaces have got IP addresses. Okay, so now next I need to provide the IP address to serial 000 interface, that is this interface. This interface is also my DCE, so I also need to provide the clock rate. So I'll go to my interface 000 and I provide the IP address 10.0.19 with the subnet mask /30. I provide a no shut command and I provide the clock rate 64,000. Next, I'll move on to this router. So for this router, I'll first configure my serial interface, which is serial 010. And for this serial 010 interface, I'm going to provide the IP address 10.0.16. And I need to provide the no shut command, no clock, because this is a DTE. Address 10.0.16 with subnet mask of /30 and a no shut command. So this should bring up my interface. Yes, so my interface is up. Okay, similarly for this router, I go to the global configuration mode, and next I will go to the interface configuration mode of my interface serial 010, which is a DTE. I need to provide the IP address 10.0.110/30. And I provide a no shut command. And since this is a DTE, I do not provide a clock rate. Okay, so you can see my interfaces are up for these WANs. Next, I'll configure these two networks. So I'll first configure my end devices with IP addresses. This end device is in the network 192.168.2.0. So I'll provide an IP 192.168.2.10. and the default gateway is 192.168.2.1, which is going to be my fast Ethernet 00 IP. And for this device, I'll provide the IP 192.168.3.10 with the default gateway 192.168.3.1. And I need to provide the fast Ethernet interface addresses. I'll provide the IP address 192.168.2.1 with the subnet mask /24, and I'll provide the no shut command. So that has brought my interface fast Ethernet 00 of this router up. Now on this router, I'll do the same. I'll go to my interface fast Ethernet 00 configuration, and I'll provide the IP address, which is default gateway for this network, which is 192.168.3.1 with subnet mask of 24, and I'll provide the no shut command to bring the interface up. So with that, I have configured IP addresses on all of my devices. Next, I'll start with configuration of static routing. Okay, so first I'm going to configure static routing on this router, and this router, and for this router I'll configure default routing. Okay, because this is going to be the stub network. So for stub network, instead of configuring all of these static networks, I can configure a single default network. Okay, so I'll configure default routing on this router and rest of the routers static routing. Let us begin with this router. So this router has got two directly connected networks. This network and this network are directly connected. So this router does not know information about this network, this network, this network and this network. Okay, so the information about all of these networks has to be configured on these router manually. Okay, in case of static routing. Similarly, for rest of the routers, we would be configuring the information about the networks present in this topology which are not directly connected to that router. So for this router, I am going to configure information about this network. I'll consider this as network 1. I'll configure information about this network, which is network 2. I'll configure information about network 3 and network 4. Okay, and this router is directly connected to network 5 and to network 6. So I do not need to configure network 5, network 6 again because that is already known by this router. So let's start configuring information about rest of the routes. We need to go to the global configuration mode for configuring the routing information. We use the command ip-root followed by the destination network. First we'll configure this network. The network address is 192.168.1.0. Okay, remember we need to provide the network address here. Okay, we are configuring how to go to this network. Okay, so in order to go to this network, what is the next hop? So if I have a message here on this router, in order to travel to this network, I need to go to this first. Okay, so this interface is my next hop. From here, this is my next hop. So this interface has got the IP 100.15. So that is what I'll configure here, 10.0.15. Next, I'll configure IP root to my network 2, which is 10.0.1.0. This is /30 network. And in order to go to this network, also I need to go to the same interface, 10.0.15. Next, in order to go to network 3, from this router, I again need to go to the same interface. So I'll configure that using the ip-root command, ip-root 10.0.1.8 with subnet mask 255.255.255.252 and the next hop as 10.0.1.5. And next, in order to go to this network present here, which is 192.168.3.0. From this router, I again have to go to the same next hop. Okay, because from here it will come to here. So I'll configure information about 192.168.3.0. So IP root 192.168.3.0 with subnet mask of /24. I need to go to 10.0.1.5. So we can take a look at the routing table which has been created here using the show ip-root command. You can see the routing table created. I have got 2 directly connected routes and then rest of them are static routes. So I have got 4 static routes and 2 directly connected routes, giving me total 6 networks. Okay, so I have got 6 networks present in this topology, right? So my router has got information about all these 6 networks. In case of static route, you can see this one which is mentioned in the square bracket. This is the administrative distance. The administrative distance of static route is 1. So that is what you can see here. And this is the next hop. Next, we will do the configurations on this router. I need to go to the global configuration mode. For this router, if I need to go to this network, I will have the messages sent to this interface as the next hop. Okay, so this interface has got the IP 10.0.1.9. So I'll configure the same IP route 192.168.10/24 network. I need to send message to 10.0.1.9. Next, IP route network 2, which is 10.0.10/30 network. I need to send messages to 10.0.1.9. Next is IP route network 5, 10.0.14/30. I need to send messages to 10.0.1.9. And in order to go to the network 6, which is IP route 192.168.2.0 subnet mask /24, I need to send messages to 10.0.1.9. I'll do a show IP route. I can see 4 static routes and 2 directly connected routes, giving me total 6 networks. Next, I'll move on to this router connected here. Do show IP route. I have got information about 3 networks already present. Okay, because I have 3 directly connected routes, 3 directly connected networks for this router. So I need to configure information about the 3 networks which are not known by this router. I'll start with configuring information about the network 1 using the IP route command. 192.168.10 with subnet mask of 24. In order to go to this network from this router, the message has to first travel to this interface, which is the next hop. This is directly connected, right? So this is the next hop, which is 10.0.1.1. Next, in order to go to network 6, which is IP route 192.168.2.0, in order to go to this, I need to send message to this interface, which is the next hop, which is 10.0.1.6. Next, I'll configure IP route 192.168.30 with subnet mask /24. In order to go to this network, I need to go to this. So from this router, message has to go to this interface, which is 10.0.1.10. So I have configured routing on these 3 routers, which is static routing, and do a show IP route. I should be able to see 6 networks, 3 static routes, 3 directly connected routes. Next, for this router, I am going to configure a single route, which is default route. Okay. If I did not configure default route, I would have to configure 1, 2, 3, 4 routes. Okay, so instead of configuring 4 different routes, I can simply configure a single default route. Okay, you can configure default routes on these 2 routers as well. Okay, so instead of configuring static routes on these 2 routers as well, you can configure default routes. In order to configure default route, you need to use the command IP route 00000000. This means for any network, if I get message for any network, then I am going to send it to the next hop, which is 10.0.1.2. You can check the routing table using show IP route. So in this routing table, you can see the default route. You can see the default route as S star. Okay, so this is the default route. In order to go to any destination network, it has to go to this next hop only. Okay, so with this, I have configured routing on all of my routers. So I should be able to ping from any end device to any other end device. I'll try pinging from this device to this device, which is 192.168.3.10. The first packet gets dropped every time because it takes some time to build the route, and from the next packet onwards you will start getting the reply. Okay, so now if I do a ping again to the same, I will have all success. Okay, so all of my packets will be successful. Only the first time goes in creating the route. I'll try pinging from this host to this host, which is 192.168.1.11. So I'll do a ping 192.168.1.11. The first packet will get dropped and then the subsequent ones will be successful. Okay, so with that, I'm able to ping from any device to any device. That means the routing is successfully configured on all of the devices. So that is about configuration of static and default routing. So that is all for this session. Thanks for watching. Please leave your comments. It would help me to create better videos for you.